Go and pick up the leash. Just look at it for a second. If your dog pulls, that thing has a shape to it by now. A worn patch where your fist goes, maybe a twist you've stopped bothering to straighten out. And you already know what the first 90 seconds out the door are going to feel like. The lean, the cough as he throws his own weight against his own throat. That moment where you plant your feet and think, right, we're doing this again. Here's what I want you to know before anything else. You can change that on today's walk. Not in 6 weeks, today, on the walk you're about to take, with the dog you've already got. And I don't care what he weighs or what breed he is, because none of that is the reason he pulls. There is one thing, though, that makes people believe they've completely solved it in about 15 minutes, and it's exactly why so many of them are back to being toads 6 weeks later. That's the last thing I'm going to talk about, and it's the one that makes the difference between a good walk and a dog who walks properly for the rest of his life. Hi everyone, I'm Leo Bennett, your neighborhood dog guy. Now here's the piece you have to sit with, because everything else depends on it. Your dog isn't pulling because he's stubborn or dominant or disrespecting you. Your dog is pulling because pulling works. Every time he leans into that leash and the pavement keeps moving underneath him, he gets paid. Several hundred times a walk, on every walk he's ever been on, since he was about 10 weeks old. There isn't a dog alive who wouldn't learn that. So when he throws himself down the street like a sled dog, he isn't failing a test. He's passing one nobody told you that you were setting. I've been dragged too, stood there saying a dog's name in an increasingly desperate voice while he didn't so much as acknowledge I existed. So today, why it happens, the 3 techniques that change it fastest, what the equipment does and doesn't do, and the correct way to handle every one. And the last one is the one I want you to remember. Let's start with the mechanics, because there's something working against you that most people don't know about. When you put steady pressure on a dog, his instinct is to push back into it. It's called the opposition reflex, and it's not attitude, it's a reflex, the same way your knee kicks when a doctor taps it. So the harder you brace and haul backwards, the harder he leans forward, and you've got 2 animals in a tug-of-war neither one chose to start. And here's what makes it worse. The leash is tight almost all the time on most walks, so he never even experiences the difference between tight and loose. He's got no idea there's another option available. The correct way. Stop thinking of this as strength and start thinking of it as information. Your dog needs to feel the difference between a loose leash and a tight one, over and over, and he needs the loose one to be the one that pays. Which means the single most important rule in this entire video, and the one people break constantly. A tight leash never moves forward. Not one step. Not just to get past the junction. If the leash is tight and you keep walking, you have just told him pulling still works, and everything else you do is undone. Now, before you train anything, I want you to measure something, because this is the number that actually predicts whether a walk goes well. Not pulling. Attention. On your next walk, count how many times your dog voluntarily checks in with you. Glances back, looks up, notices where you are without being asked. Most people who are struggling get an answer somewhere near 0. And that tells you far more than the pulling does, because a dog who never once looks at you isn't ignoring your commands. He genuinely hasn't registered that you're part of this activity. To him, you're the thing at the end of a rope that slows him down. Where you want to end up is something like 80% of his attention on you and the walk, 20% on the world, and he can shift between them. 50-50 would already be a transformation for most people watching this. The correct way. Count it, honestly, once. Then start paying for it. Anytime he looks at you when you didn't ask, mark it. A quiet yes, and feed him. That's the entire exercise. You are not training him to walk yet. You're buying the attention you'll need before you can train anything at all, and it costs about 1 pocket of chopped up chicken. Here's the first real technique, and it's the one that does the heaviest lifting. It's a direction change. He surges out in front, and instead of pulling back, or repeating his name, or stopping to have a conversation about it, you simply turn and walk the other way. No announcement, no warning, you just change your mind about where you're going. What that does is beautifully simple. The moment he's out ahead, being out ahead becomes wrong, because ahead is now behind. He has to come and find you, and the second he does, the second he's back beside your leg, he gets paid. The correct way. Keep it quiet and keep it unemotional. Do not yank him around the turn. Turn your body, walk off at a normal pace, and let the leash do nothing but tell him where you've gone. If he catches the turn and comes with you, that's a reward turn and he eats. If he misses it and has to catch up, that's information, and it's not personal. You didn't do anything to him, you just went somewhere else. Do this 5 or 6 times in the first 10 minutes of a walk, and most dogs start watching you because you've suddenly become unpredictable, and unpredictable people are worth keeping an eye on. The second technique is even simpler, and I think people underrate it: the sudden stop. He hits the end of the leash, and you don't pull back. You simply stop dead and become completely uninteresting. A statue. No talking, no tugging, no repeating his name. He's now attached to something immovable, and the only thing on earth that makes forward motion happen again is slack in that line. Most dogs work this out faster than you'd think. He'll strain, then sit, then look back at you, and the instant that leash goes soft, you move off. The correct way. Be boring and be patient, and expect the first few to take an embarrassingly long time. That's normal, and it's actually the price of admission. You're paying up front for a rule that then holds for years. 2 warnings. Don't do this on a busy pavement in the rain when you're already late, because you won't have the patience, and a half-kept rule is worse than no rule. And don't combine it with a hard jerk on the line. The stopping is what teaches. Adding a yank to it just gives him something to brace against, and on a flat collar it puts real force through his neck and throat, which is a genuinely bad idea in a part of the body that doesn't tolerate it. The third one is where most people lose the plot, and it isn't a technique at all. It's where and when you pay. Get this wrong and you can do everything else right and still get nowhere. Here's the mistake. Your dog pulls for a minute, then finally comes back to you, and you're so relieved that you praise him and give him a treat right then. What did you just pay for? The coming back. Which means the pulling was step 1 of a 2-step routine that ends in chicken, and you've now taught the routine. The correct way. Pay him in position before anything goes wrong. Decide where your sweet spot is. I'd use his shoulder somewhere near your leg, either side, pick one and stick to it. And feed him there, with your hand down at your thigh, while the leash is loose and he's doing absolutely nothing remarkable. That feels wrong to people. He's not performing. That's exactly why it works. You're paying for the state you want, not the recovery from the state you don't. And feed him a lot early on. Not one treat every few minutes. Handfuls in the first week, until being next to your leg is the single most profitable place in the neighborhood. Now let's talk about equipment, because this is where the internet gets loud, and where you deserve a straight answer. First, the thing everyone agrees on and nobody says. No piece of equipment teaches a dog to walk on a loose leash. Every one of them manages pulling. The teaching is the direction changes, the stops, and where you pay. Equipment just buys you a body you can physically handle while the teaching happens. And that's not nothing. If your dog outweighs your ability to hold him, nothing else on this list is even possible. A flat collar teaches nothing and gives you the least control, and it puts all the force through the throat. A front clip harness turns him rather than letting him tow, which for most household dogs is the sensible default. A head halter gives the most mechanical advantage for a strong dog and needs slow, patient introduction, or he'll spend the whole walk trying to get it off. And then there's the prong collar, and here I'll be straight with you. Experienced dog people genuinely, seriously disagree about it. Plenty of good trainers use them carefully and get fast results. Plenty of others won't touch them, and several countries have restricted or banned them outright. What both camps agree on is the thing worth understanding. Whatever your dog is looking at when discomfort arrives is what he associates the discomfort with. Real-world example. A man I worked with had a young shepherd who lunged at other dogs, and the tool worked beautifully for the pulling. But every correction happened at the exact moment his dog was staring at another dog across the street. 6 months later, that dog didn't just pull toward other dogs. He'd started barking at them from 200 feet away in a way he never had before. The pulling was solved. Something worse had been built underneath it. The correct way. Whatever you use it as management and put your effort into the teaching. And time your feedback around you, not around triggers. Direction changes and stops that happen because of where you went are neutral. Discomfort that arrives while he's staring at a dog, a jogger, or a child is teaching something you didn't intend. Here's one that goes against a lot of leash advice, and I think it's the most underrated thing in this video. Ask yourself what your walk is actually for. Because a lot of pulling isn't a training failure. It's a dog who has been given 20 minutes outdoors at a brisk human pace with his nose 8 inches above ground level and no opportunity to do the single thing his brain is built for. Sniffing isn't a distraction from the walk. For a dog, it's most of the point of the walk. It's how he reads the neighborhood, and it tires him out in a way that raw distance doesn't come close to. A dog who never gets to do it spends the whole time straining toward the next thing, because he's trying to get to a walk you're not letting him have. The correct way. Split it deliberately. Some of the walk is structured, leash loose, next to you, working. Then you give a release word and let him have 5 minutes to sniff whatever he likes, and that becomes one of the best rewards you own. Dogs learn that distinction quickly, and it takes enormous pressure off the structured part. 2 things worth saying while we're out here. If you're using a long line for the sniffing part, use a harness for it rather than anything around the neck, because a dog hitting the end of a long line at speed on a collar can do real damage. And if he's the sort who tries to eat what other animals have left behind, don't wrestle it out of his mouth. Teach a trade, because a dog who thinks you're going to take it will simply learn to swallow faster. Which brings me to the last one, and the reason I made you wait. You'll see a demonstration where a dog who's been dragging somebody down the street for a year is walking beautifully in 12 minutes. And that demonstration is real. I'm not going to tell you it's fake, because it isn't. A skilled handler with good timing genuinely can transform a walk in 1 session. And if you've never seen it, it looks like magic. Here's what it isn't. It isn't a trained dog. It's a dog who has, in one location, with one person, in one set of conditions, worked out how to make something stop. And dogs generalize very badly. That's not a flaw in your dog, it's how the species works. What he learned on a quiet road at 11 in the morning does not automatically exist on a busy street at school run, and it very often doesn't exist at all when your partner takes the leash on Sunday. Real-world example. A woman I worked with had paid for exactly that kind of session and left thrilled because the dog had been perfect by the end of it. 3 weeks later, she was back to being towed. Nothing had gone wrong and nobody had been cheated. She'd watched a professional's timing solve it in real time and had, understandably, gone home believing the dog now knew how to walk. What the dog actually knew was how to walk with that man on that street that morning. The correct way. Treat the fast result as the start, not the finish. 3 walks in a row of consistent handling gets you a real change. Then you have to deliberately rebuild it everywhere else. Different street, different time of day, busier, then with the kids, then with your partner holding the leash and doing exactly what you do. Every new context is a fresh conversation, and each one goes faster than the last. And keep the standard the same on the bad days, because the walk where you're tired and running late is the one that either holds the whole thing together or quietly takes it apart. So take this one thing out of all of it. Your dog isn't fighting you on the leash. He's doing the only thing that has ever worked, with a body built to lean into pressure, on a piece of equipment that has never once told him there's another way. Give him that other way, pay him properly for choosing it, and be patient through the bit where he tests whether you meant it. It comes faster than you think, and then it never really leaves. And if you've spent this long looking for how to fix a walk instead of just deciding your dog is difficult and shortening the route, that says everything about the kind of owner you are. So tell me in the comments what you're working with. Breed, age, and where he pulls hardest. The first 90 seconds out the door. The corner where the other dogs are. The whole way home every time because he knows it's ending. I read every one of them, and they decide what I make next. Now go put some chicken in your pocket and take the shorter route on purpose.